want to ask, we're in a political climate that's, very turbulent right now, to say the least, and there's an election coming up next year. So, is democracy overrated?
Yes. Well, we don't live in a democratic state. We live in a republic.
Well,
That's
is the concept of democracy over? Is American
oh
democracy
yeah.
is
Yeah,
American democracy overrated?
yes. It's overrated. The trickle down effect is overrated. Um, it's never worked well for us specifically. It's never worked well. But I think the concept of democracy is a noble one, but one that has not been executed well and has never been favorable. We wouldn't have a lot of the injustices that we have, and like we've said before, a lot of the issues that white America is feeling right now with the opioid epidemic, crime going up, the issues in San Francisco, pay being lower than ever. That's stuff we've been going through the last 100 years. It's now just on our doorstep. If democracy worked, we wouldn't have some of these issues. So yes, democracy is overrated, and it's never really worked for us anyway.
For sure, I think democracy is overrated for sure. It's overrated for a variety of different things, as you said. It's really not set. It's not the idea of everybody has equal power and we can. Yeah, it's a good idea in theory, but that's not the case, right? The
Yeah.
rich have more power. Lobbyists control the government. You can
Farmer
get
controls TV.
so nobody really there's no equal power shared.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a myth. And I feel that this idea of democracy is a European idea that has been posterized by America and shipped and forced all over the world. Once again, it's a lot of different things that American culture has normalized, and we think that anybody that does anything separate from that is uncivilized or not, modern society. But somebody like I was talking to somebody before, and they was just like, even if you look at Africa, democracy is not something that's native to Africa's kingdoms, monarchies, right? And it was like, when the West came and they actually purposely destroyed the monarchies and forced a system of democracy on African nations. But that was really just to, break down a power structure and to make sure that the European countries and America maintain control in Africa, right? Because they could prop up corrupt leaders and they could have coups and they can kind of replace whoever they felt wasn't going to, be best for their interest. So they systematically depowered the kings and kingdoms, and they empowered a system of democracy, but that hasn't worked for any country in Africa for the most part. And then you look at other countries, like I said, we'll talk about the power ranking, but you look at countries like the UAE, and we have a monarchy in place and it's working. So it's like, okay, yeah, if you have absolute power, that's gonna be extremely dangerous if somebody's a bad leader. But nobody's ever talks about what if they're a good leader? Then it's actually beneficial, right? Because like you can't get anything done in a system where you just constantly have to fight amongst each other, and then somebody has to pay you, and then you can't say what you really want to say, because if you say what you want to say, then the lobbyists are gonna run ads against you and cancel you, and so now you're kind of beholden to whoever has the most money. And so it's like in that system, we might as well just not even have politicians, just have the businessmen. It's like just have a race, whoever has the most money just run the country.
Yeah,
that's what it is now anyway. So just have like a small table of the richest people in America and in the world, and just have them run the country, because that's already what's currently happening, right? With the gaze of that the people elect, and it's free elections, and it's really not. Even electoral college, it actually makes.
Oh yeah, that's a
joke.
So it's like, it's so many different things. And once again, I think it's important just to kind of have these conversations, because I just feel like a lot of times we live in a bubble in America, and once again, we think our way is the only way, and it's really not. And that leads to us trying to force our culture and force what we have, or actually what's been forced on us, to other people. And I think it's important to maintain open mind and not be so quick to criticize things, especially things that we don't fully understand.
Especially if our country is broken. And we're falling behind. We can, like you said, we can argue the hedge funds, banks, and pharma runs the country right now. It's just a veneer of democracy and elections, but they really run the table. Like when you have people who are afraid. And even in the interview with Kyrie's mom, like Kyrie was demonized as if he said something bad to an actual president of the United States over what he said became out to be true.
Well, you
That's
have
the
to.
crazy part.
It's a very embarrassing time right now for America, because now it's a variety of different things that's happening on the world stage, and it's not looking good for America, and it's becoming more and more obvious, and from political leadership to corruption to a variety of different things. And I think social media has provided a platform for more and more people to see different things outside of just traditional media. And now you can see how biased and how corrupt traditional media is too. So this is a very interesting time in world history. It's a very embarrassing time for America for a variety of different reasons, and it's falling apart. To be honest with you, it's definitely falling apart because the infrastructure is literally falling apart. Our respect in the world is decaying. Our influence is decaying, and it's only so long that you can rely on your military might and your power when it comes to monetary money, because we still have the strongest military, we still have the strongest economic system. So it's kind of like a bully approach where you can just kind of muscle your way through, even if people don't like you, they'll still deal with you. But it's only so long that can last. That's not really the best way to go about it. Eventually, you're gonna have some people that actually do like you, like some real allies. And I don't know. I don't know if we have too many.
What if you're able to innovate at the level that forces people to not even like you, but have to tolerate you, right? So when you look at the wealthiest companies in the world, if you look at the top 10, how many of them are American?
All of them.
Outside of Saudi Aramco, right? So if you think
Yeah.
that in the next 20 to 50 years, can we see a reversal or other countries coming inside of that top 10 or top 5? Like one specific, right?
I believe
I
so.
don't know.
And
you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe 10th. And I think that's why BRICS is so important, because if you begin to put your resources together, then you can begin to build something. Tel Aviv's startup market is very interesting as well. Got to keep your eyes there. I know Spotify's had some issues, but what Daniel created at Spotify was interesting before the labels took it over and got 30% of that business. I think if we don't get our affairs in order and start to do better business and take care of our citizens, there will be room. And I'm seeing a lot of people start to say, hey, I don't think you're that crazy to go to Mexico or to live somewhere else primarily and then come back. Those conversations are happening a lot more amongst our community more now than ever.
I think I probably 2 weeks ago, I sent you an article. I think we had just came back from the UAE, and we heard Ray Dalio speak, and he was like, they've got it right here. It's hard for me to say, but over the past 30 years, there's few places in the world that are getting it right. They're getting it right here. And he was talking about the summit, the financial summit in UAE. But then a week later, you see Morgan Stanley, you see the Rothschild, they're going into Abu Dhabi and trying to figure out how they can set up shop and begin banking in these areas. And now it's like, all right, well, they're in Abu Dhabi. Well, there's a race. Who's going to go to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia? Because that's the next place we have to go. And so
you just seen Saudi.
One last thing. It was, now we look at what Apple's now done with India, right? Where they're saying, all right, well, a quarter of our phones, which is the main market driver for our business, we're going to have made there. So you're starting to see we're spreading this thing out from businesses for sure, and financial institutions are starting to spread this thing out from a global aspect rather than saying we're just going to rely on our American dominance.
Well, you saw Saudi Arabia offered 30 years tax-free haven for any company that relocates their Middle Eastern division to Saudi. So I don't necessarily know if it's going to be difficult for companies to just take over that top 10 spot, but all these companies are global companies, so they could be an American-based company. But I mean, if they're based in another country, if their major workforce is in another, which is already kind of the place now. Even Tim Cook, when he said before, as far as they asked him about, this is another reason it doesn't really matter if an Apple's an Apple company, is an American company, if their workers are in China. And they asked them in front of Congress, they said, what's it going to take for you to bring your workforce back to America? It's impossible. It's not going to happen.
Impossible.
When you look at the cost of labor, when you look at unions, when you look at so many different things, health insurance, variety of different stuff, it's like the cost that it would cost to
$5,000 for an iPhone.
No, it's not. He's like, it's not going to happen. So it's like, all right, they're still American companies and they still pay taxes in America, but they're going to be, more workers in other countries. There's going to be more headquarters in other countries. There's going to be a variety of different things. So the American company thing will probably still stay because it's difficult to kind of take that away. But I don't think that that's a determining factor.
But inside is that another way to spread dominance?
Is what another way is
planting your flag in different countries. Obviously,
you have to.
You're spreading from a global aspect, right? Because it's a global economy. But you're planting inside of your business. There'll be infrastructure. There'll be customs that will become Americanized, right? So we're talking about the playing field. What does that look like when you're now in India? And now it's right. Well, we're doing it this way, right? There's customs that we're accustomed to things that are happening in this country, but now we have our business here. Here's a new way to spread dominance.